On my daughter's wedding day, I was kicked out of the very ceremony I had paid for, in front of 40 guests, who were live streaming and laughing as if I were just some lost stranger who'd wandered into a place I didn't belong. "Dad, please leave. You're not invited." A light sentence, yet enough to shatter the atmosphere, enough to turn me, the man who built her entire life, into an outsider right at the center of an extravagant event, funded entirely by the calloused hands I earned my living with. If you've ever been looked down on, ever spent your whole life raising someone only to be dismissed, in the end like I was, I want you to listen to this story till the end. Not to feel sad, but to remind yourself that love is not something guaranteed. It needs to be valued. It needs to be returned. And sometimes it only shines after it's walked through darkness. Thank you for listening to me. I've walked through countless construction gates in my life, from humble neighborhoods to luxurious villas, but none ever made my heart pound like the tall black iron gate at Stonehaven Estate that afternoon. The gate was high, heavy, its ornate iron patterns seemingly reminding me that inside lay a different world, one reserved only for people of a certain caliber. I turned off my old F-150 pickup, the one I treated with the same care as a pair of hands, because it had been my partner through hundreds of job sites. On the passenger seat, I gently placed a small, dark blue velvet box. Inside was the wedding gift I'd prepared for Olivia, the silver necklace her mother, Sarah, used to wear every day. When she passed, it was the only thing I kept for myself. Today I planned to give it to my daughter as a way for Sarah to still be present on her special day. I adjusted my tie and smoothed the lapel of my navy blue suit jacket. Olivia once told me, "This color makes you look like a CEO." I laughed, but honestly, I just hoped I looked decent enough today not to embarrass my daughter. I walked toward the white stone entrance area, where luxury cars were lined up in perfect rows. At the main doors, guests in evening gowns and impeccably tailored suits were holding champagne, smiling, chatting softly. Soft violin music drifted out. Everything was perfect, at least on the surface. I had just stepped onto the marble steps when a woman's voice rang out, polite yet blocking my path. "Sir, this is a private entrance." I turned. Tierney Blake, the wedding planner, stood there in elegant black attire, holding a clipboard, a headset resting on her ear. She looked at me with professional composure, but there was hesitation in her eyes, as if I were an unexpected variable not included in the script. "I'm the bride's father," I said gently, trying not to reveal my discomfort. Tierney flinched slightly, then quickly masked it with a courteous smile. Her eyes skimmed from my suit jacket down to my well-polished leather shoes, then toward the pickup still parked in the distance. I saw that quick moment of judgment, a look I wasn't unfamiliar with as a construction worker, though I never expected to receive it on my daughter's wedding day. "Yes, of course, but let me check the guest list real quick." The guest list, a harmless phrase on the surface, but inside me it slid like a thin blade across bare skin. If anything, the words, "I'm Olivia's father," should have been enough for this door to open. No further confirmation needed. I didn't have time to answer before hurried high-heel footsteps echoed from the hall. Olivia appeared in the large doorway, her white wedding dress hugging her figure, the trailing fabric behind her flowing across the stone like a thin cloud. For a second I saw the little girl who once spun around our living room in a princess dress, asking, "Dad, do I look pretty?" Today she was more beautiful than I had ever imagined. But in a single breath, that beauty was shadowed by something else. Shock, then tension, then worry. Don't worry about me. Worry for the image. "Dad?" Olivia said, her voice low but loud enough to draw a few nearby glances. I smiled and lifted the box in my hand like a greeting. "I came to congratulate you. It's your big day, Liv." But Olivia didn't smile. She glanced around the hall, where nearly 40 guests were standing, many with their phones raised, live streaming, recording stories, They had all seen me, and her reaction. I saw Olivia's shoulders tighten. She stepped forward, as if trying to shield me from the crowd's view, but it was far too late. Tierney stood nearby, her expression visibly troubled. "Dad," Olivia took a slow breath, her thin smile stretched like glass about to crack. I told you already. Today is an event hosted by the Alden family." She swallowed, her voice dropping, each word sharp as a thin blade. "This place has its partners, the press, people who evaluate every detail. I can't let anything fall out of the image we've built." She looked at me, not with a daughter's eyes, but with the eyes of someone trying to handle an external inconvenience. "Dad, you standing here makes everything awkward." The sentence dropped like a stone thrown into a still lake, creating ripples she couldn't see. But I felt every one of them. I, a man who had built homes for hundreds of families, was being placed by my own daughter into the category of aesthetic flaws. She continued, her voice quieter but sharper. "I need everything to be uniform, do you understand? Today isn't the place for anything off-tone." Before I could say anything more, a deep male voice, cold but wrapped in politeness, approached. "Olivia, everything okay?" Nate Alden appeared beside her. His black tuxedo fit perfectly, his tie flawless, his hair styled the way men from families born knowing how to enter private clubs always had it. Nate looked me over from head to toe, unhurried, as if evaluating some project component, then looked at Olivia. "And this is," Olivia swallowed, "this is my dad." Nate's eyes didn't widen with joy. They only paused for half a second before closing up quickly. He turned to me and spoke with polite wording sharpened by his choice of tone. "Sir, this entrance is reserved for guests listed under the Alden family. Today is an event, symbolic for us. We should respect boundaries." I felt the smile on my face stiffen. "I'm not trying to break any boundaries," I said. "I'm just the bride's father." A group of nearby guests stepped closer, clearly to listen. A young woman turned her camera directly toward us. I saw the small screen in her hand, the live stream title visible, the viewer count rising every second. Olivia grew even more unsettled. She stepped closer, nearly blocking me from the hall. In that moment, I understood. She was trying to choose a side, and the side she chose wasn't me. Olivia swallowed and then spoke, this time louder, clearer, as though speaking to me and to all the people around us watching intently. "Dad, please leave. You're not invited." Each word was a nail hammered into wood. No room for misunderstanding. No doorway left for me to walk through. A few nearby guests shifted awkwardly. A middle-aged man leaned toward his friend, whispering, but his phone's microphone captured everything. The bride's father was not invited? At Stonehaven, this is gonna spread fast. Before the air thickened any further, Nate ended it all with a sentence light as mist, but sharp enough to slice the world between theirs and mine clean in half. "Workers shouldn't mix with the Aldens." He didn't say outright, "You're the kind of man who shouldn't be here," but I heard exactly that. I dipped my head slightly. No arguing. No explaining that it was workers like me who built the villas they lived in, the towers they worked in, and even Stonehaven itself. I only looked at Olivia one more time. She turned her face away, avoiding my eyes as if avoiding a mirror, reflecting what she didn't want to acknowledge. "Her real origins," I said softly, just loud enough for the three of us. "All right, I'll go." I turned and walked down the steps. Behind me, whispers rose again, mixed with the music that continued as if the band had no idea the script of this day had just taken a completely different turn. It's as I walked across the parking area, I caught my reflection on the glossy black surface of a luxury car. A man who had aged quickly in 10 minutes, holding a small gift box, back still straight, but eyes deeper than before. At the entrance, the young woman was still live streaming. Her screen showed a flood of new comments jumping up. The bride kicked her dad out of the wedding? Fake rich? Poor father. I didn't need to keep watching to know how fast that video would spread. I opened my car door and placed the velvet box on the passenger seat. My fingers brushed the lid I once imagined opening in front of Olivia today, among applause and blessings. Instead, it lay still, a silent witness to something that had just snapped without a name. I started the engine. In the rearview mirror, Stonehaven Estate grew smaller, but the feeling did not. Something in my eyes had changed, like when a builder notices the first hairline crack in what was supposed to be a solid wall. Not loud, not collapsing yet, but a warning of an inevitable day to come. I drove away not because I accepted that I didn't belong there, but because I understood. From the moment Olivia said, "You're not invited," a ledger had opened between us, one that needed to be recalculated from the beginning. And this time, I would no longer be the only one quietly paying for everything. I sat in the driver's seat and closed the door, the soft click sounding like a final period to everything that had just happened at Stonehaven. Inside the truck, the familiar scent of old leather and pine brought me the same calm I always found after long days on job sites. I rested my hand on the steering wheel for a long moment. No trembling, no anger, just a thick, heavy quietness. The kind that comes to someone who has finally received an answer they've avoided facing for years. I opened the glove compartment and pulled out a black file folder labeled FRA, Financial Risk Anticipation File, the financial contingency dossier I had prepared over 30 years as a construction owner. I tapped my phone and called Troy Alderman, Senior Risk Officer at Maple Ridge Federal Bank. He answered after 2 rings. "Mr. Cross? I thought today was your daughter's wedding. Everything okay?" I looked through the windshield toward Stonehaven Estate, glimmering under the late afternoon sun, then replied smoothly and calmly, "Troy, I need to place a reversal hold on 6 major transactions processed this morning, all connected to the wedding of Olivia Cross and Nathan Alden." Troy went silent for 3 seconds, then read them back. Venue fee, catering, florist, orchestra, security, litigation, and wedding planner. Transactions from $25,000 to $80,000 each. Total $168,000. You want them all frozen? I said, "Yes. Reversal hold for 30 days. No re-release without my wet ink signature." Troy's tone grew more formal. "Legal basis?" I flipped to the checklist in the file, the 3rd note section. I stated each word clearly. Possible financial irregularities detected. Immediate freeze recommended. Troy said he would execute under protocol. ER 71. The order would be active within 8 minutes. I thanked him and ended the call. Then I opened my laptop and drafted an email to all vendors with the subject line, "Urgent, financial. Irregularities detected. Temporary freeze," informing them that the bank had detected anomalies and temporarily suspended all wedding-related payments. No accusations, no exclamation marks, just a professional report. The same way I handled multi-million-dollar transactions in business. When I closed the laptop, the afternoon light over Stonehaven had shifted into a deep bronze shade. A bank alert chimed, "Reversal hold for 6 transactions active." I looked at that notification without feeling triumph or bitterness, only a simple truth. There were things I had tolerated for 28 years, and today I simply stopped tolerating them. As I started the engine and drove away from Stonehaven, I knew this much. Once truth is set in its rightful place, the false support pillars will collapse on their own without me lifting a hand. It's only a matter of time. Inside the Stonehaven Grand Hall, no one knew that just a few minutes earlier, the bride's father had been asked to leave right in front of nearly 40 guests live streaming. No one knew that 6 transactions totaling $168,000 were now suspended in the banking system. And even fewer knew that the entire perfection of the ceremony was standing on thin ice. The first sign appeared when Tierney Blake, the wedding planner, hurried to Olivia, just as she finished a round of photos with her bridesmaids. Tierney's face remained polite, but her voice was stretched tight as a wire. Olivia, we have an issue with the final payment. The venue is asking you to sign a personal payment guarantee before continuing the program. Olivia froze, her eyes blinking fast. What do you mean? Everything has already been paid. Tierney lowered her head and spoke softly, but her mic was on, and her words slipped into the auxiliary speaker system. The payment was held. They need your personal signature. An audible, "Oh!" erupted from the group of young guests live streaming in the corner. Cameras immediately turned to Olivia. Olivia's face went pale, though she forced a professional smile. She handed her credit card to the venue staff, trying to speak quietly but unable to escape the mic pinned to her dress. Just run it, then bring me the paperwork. The staff slid the card into the machine. Beep. Declined. The entire hall paused for half a second. Two women covered their mouths, eyes lighting up as they had just witnessed premium drama. Olivia trembled slightly but kept her voice steady. Try again. Beep. Declined. The POS error beep cut through the luxurious atmosphere like a slap. A guest live streaming exclaimed, "Oh my God, the bride's card got declined." The camera zoomed in on Olivia's face, ghost white and shaken, then on the flashing red light of the card reader. Live stream comments exploded. Fake luxury? Are the Aldens broke? Bride gets her card rejected at the wedding? Stonehaven's glitter turning to tin. The chaos barely had time to settle before the next collapse rolled in. The catering team was bringing out trays when Marcus, the head of catering, took a call that drained the color from his face. He immediately turned to his staff. Stop everything. Cover the stations. Two staff members pulled white linens over the entire service area. The smoked ribs, salads, oysters, and even the luxury dessert bar were covered as if they had never existed. Guests looked around in confusion. An older uncle said loudly, "What? We were about to eat." A woman whispered, but the mic caught it. A vendor halting mid-event. I've never seen this happen before. Olivia rushed toward Marcus. What are you doing? This is my wedding. Marcus bowed apologetically, though his tone was icy. I'm very sorry. The catering payment was frozen by the bank. We must protect our assets. Across the hall, a team of florists entered carrying large plastic crates. They began removing the centerpiece arrangements. Delicate white orchid clusters, imported at $5,000 each, right in front of Olivia's mother-in-law. Mrs. Alden's eyes widened in disbelief. Excuse me, this is my family's wedding? The lead florist responded calmly. We're sorry, but we must reclaim any unpaid assets. A guest zoomed in on the scene and shouted, Oh my God, they're taking the flowers right in front of the mother-in-law. Livestream comments accelerated. This is wilder than a drama series. Stonehaven disaster in real time. The Aldens just lost face big time. But the peak of the collapse arrived when Olivia, desperately trying to salvage her dignity, stepped onto the stage to give her thanks to the guests. She managed exactly 8 words. Today has truly been a day, then pop. The orchestra stopped playing. The entire sound system cut out. Her microphone went dead. On stage, Olivia stood frozen under the stare of hundreds of guests. A moment of absolute silence, then waves of whispers spread like a tsunami. Someone said too loudly, Even the music stopped. This isn't an accident anymore. A young guest live-streamed the entire hall, the staff packing up instruments, the tables covered in white cloths. Olivia's horrified expression, then typed on screen, Stonehaven disaster. Within 3 minutes, the hashtag began spreading, and within 10 minutes, the Alden Cross wedding, nearly $170,000 of luxury, officially became free entertainment for thousands of live-stream viewers. At the far end of the parking lot, my old F-150 rolled away quietly. No one knew. No one looked. But the snowball they created had already started rolling, and it was going to get much, much bigger. I returned home when night had fully settled, and the wooden house by the forest that had always felt familiar suddenly felt so silent it was almost cold. I turned on the light in my office, the warm glow spreading across the shelves of files I had kept for nearly 3 decades. They weren't just documents. They were the history of a lifetime of fatherhood. I called Rowan Whitmore, the independent auditor I trusted most, the one who helped audit my company every quarter. He arrived in just over 30 minutes, carrying his laptop, scanner, and a serious expression as if preparing for a federal-level financial investigation. Rowan looked at the 15 boxes I had pulled into the living room, each labeled Olivia, Year 0, Olivia, Year 1, School, College, Health, Housing, Vehicles, MISC. He let out a quiet breath. I knew you were meticulous, but I didn't think to this extent. I sat down and opened the first box. Inside were the hospital bills from the day Olivia was born, the NICU charges, lab tests, and medications from her earliest years. Back then, I knew only one thing: keep my daughter alive and healthy. The money I could always earn again. Rowan opened his laptop, and I opened the second box. For 4 straight hours, we went through every stage, every receipt, every email, every note from when Olivia couldn't even write her own name. Her elementary school years were private school tuition, $12,000, then $14,000, then $17,000 per year. In high school, she wanted Riverside Prep, the school all her wealthy friends attended, and tuition jumped to nearly $24,000 a year. Rowan wrote the final number: pre-college education, $260,000. The next box was college. Northwestern, Olivia's dream, where she proudly told me the acceptance rate was under 9%. I worked 3 back-to-back construction projects in 1 year just to pay the deposit. Tuition, $52,000 per year. Room and board, $18,000. Books, extracurriculars, clubs, $11,000, not counting the 2 postgraduate years she insisted on pursuing to compete in the market. Rowan slid his calculator, tapped repeatedly, then presented the total. College plus postgraduate, $520,000. I looked at those bills, and what I felt wasn't regret for the money. It was like watching my own sweat drop by drop, the days I skipped lunch to make deadlines, the years of 14-hour shifts. But I didn't stop. I opened the study abroad box, the plane ticket when she was 19 for a cultural program in Italy, $8,700. An exchange program in Canada, $11,300. A summer term in Kyoto, $6,500. An international internship she took for global experience, $21,000, and many smaller costs. Rowan concluded, study abroad and exchange programs, $148,000. The next box was medical. Not huge, but steady. Orthodontics at 14, $9,800. A bicycle accident, $2,300. Routine checkups, medications, college counseling. Rowan wrote medical, $38,000. Then came the box I knew would sting: vehicles. Olivia got her first car at 16, a small sedan, $18,000. At 20, she complained, "Everyone at school has an SUV, so I bought her a 2012 SUV, $27,000. At 24, when she interned in Seattle, I upgraded her to a hybrid, $32,000. And 1 year before the wedding, because image matters, I bought her a crossover, $49,000. Rowan summed it. Vehicles, $126,000. I said nothing. I simply looked at papers where every digit, every line was my love for my daughter. The next box was housing and living expenses, rent for her apartment through 6 years of college and postgraduate school, furniture, groceries, the dad I'm short this month transfers, The credit card bills I covered when she exceeded her limit. Rowan recorded everything, housing plus living expenses, $210,000, and finally the box that made me sit still for nearly a full minute, wedding planning. I read the costs that, just 1 month ago, I had proudly believed were the right thing to do. Orchids from Lanai, $21,000. Premium champagne, $14,000. Private tasting for the Alden family, $9,600. Stonehaven venue, fee, $64,000. Orchestra, $18,000. Videography, $11,000. Olivia's wedding dress, $16,500. Invitations, $4,200. Countless smaller items. Rowan finished the math, then looked at me. Wedding, $168,000. It was time to total everything. I placed my hand on the table and listened as Rowan read each category aloud, adding them to his calculator. Then he spoke slowly, as if understanding that the number was not just money. It was 28 years of my life. True total cost, $1,470,000. I closed my eyes, not out of regret, but because for the first time in my life, everything I had given, not the feelings but the substance, had been quantified, and numbers do not lie. Rowan handed me a stack of printed emails from the archive, messages Olivia sent over the years while studying or during temporary unemployment. Lines I had read hundreds of times but never truly absorbed. Loan, repay after I get stable. Dad, lend me this for now. I'll pay you back once I'm okay. Dad, can you help me this month? I'm short. I'll return it as soon as I can. I looked at every word, every promise never fulfilled. Rowan spoke softly, like someone witnessing a truth he didn't want to worsen. You have a complete file for a personal audit. No one can deny what you've done. I didn't answer. I just stared at the number $1,470,000 printed neatly on a single white page. A number large enough to buy 3 small homes. Enough for a comfortable retirement. Enough to live peacefully for life. But I had used it to give Olivia a life she believed was her entitlement. I closed the file. Not angry. Not resentful. Just awakened. For the first time in 28 years, I saw the full picture of the love I had given and the indifference I had received. And from that moment on, everything inside me became clear as ice. The next morning, I went to the office of Arthur Kessler, the most renowned commercial civil attorney in the West Haven area, the one who had represented major corporations in disputes worth tens of millions. He had received the entire $1,470,000 file from me the night before. The moment he saw me step inside, Arthur simply nodded, pushed up his glasses, and spoke in the tone of someone who already held complete control. I've reviewed everything. This file is sharper than the Treasury Department's own standards. With evidence like this, we can draft the strongest demand letter the legal framework allows. He opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. On it was the draft of the demand letter, 60-day repayment requirement, beginning with a line every attorney recognizes as a red alert signal. This letter serves as a formal demand based on documented financial transactions, amounting to $1,470,000 USD, provided as repayable loans over a 28-year period. Arthur explained each line, his voice steady and precise. I listed the full timeline: education $260,000, college and postgraduate $520,000, study abroad $148,000, medical $38,000, vehicles $126,000, housing $210,000, wedding planning $168,000, all supported with original receipts, and Olivia's emails titled Loan, Repay After I Get Stable. She cannot claim ignorance. I looked at the letter. Every sentence sharp, formal, airtight. Arthur continued. Under Texas state law, all loans without paper contracts but supported by email acknowledgments of repayment obligation, are fully enforceable. This demand letter triggers the 60 days. If unpaid, we proceed with notice of intent to sue. He paused, looking directly at me. Ethan, this file is strong enough to stand in court. I nodded. Send it. Arthur signed, stamped, and called his staff. Priority Special Courier. Direct delivery to Olivia Cross. Signature confirmation required. 3 hours later, at the Waverly Grand Hotel, where Olivia and the Aldens were staying after the wedding meltdown, 2 polite concierge staff approached Suite 17A with a black, rigid envelope embossed with Kessler and Bramwell, LLP. Olivia opened the door in wrinkled silk pajamas, eyes swollen from a sleepless night. When she saw the law firm's logo, she nearly went pale. The staff member said, "Signature required, ma'am." Olivia signed with trembling hands, as if some instinct already knew this was no ordinary envelope. When the door closed, she tore open the edge and collapsed onto the sofa the moment she read the first line. $1,470,000. 60 days. Legal obligation. Emails proving she had called it a loan. Olivia's face drained of color as though her blood had vanished. She reread it 7 times until the numbers blurred but still pierced straight into her mind. Impossible to avoid. A loud crash came from the adjoining living room. The Aldens had read their copy. Nate held the duplicate letter, eyes wide in disbelief. His mother, Judith Alden, set her phone onto the table with a heavy thud. This is a real legal obligation, not a joke, not family drama. This is a debt. Nate's father shot up from his chair, face turning crimson with anger. $1,470,000, and the media is buzzing about the Stonehaven incident? This is no longer family drama. This is a red-level reputational threat to the entire Alden lineage. Olivia stammered, I didn't know my dad kept records. But Mrs. Alden cut her off, her voice sharp as a blade. You told us he was just some ordinary construction worker, not financially relevant. You hid this from us, Olivia. Nate threw the letter onto the table. We're on social media under the hashtag Stonehaven Disaster, and now my family receives legal documents from the biggest law firm in the city? Do you have any idea what this will do to our investment relationships? Olivia burst into tears, but this time her crying softened no one in the room. Mrs. Alden spoke slowly, each word tightening around Olivia's throat. If we don't resolve this quickly, reporters will smell the scandal instantly. The Alden family name cannot allow this kind of financial negligence. Olivia stared at the letter in her hands. White paper, black ink, not a single plea. Only facts, numbers, responsibility. For the first time in her life, she fully felt the weight of what her father had been trying to tell her for 28 years. And in that moment, in the middle of a luxury hotel suite, Olivia realized this was no longer a matter of father and daughter. This was law, obligation, and a late awakening no one could carry for her. The news exploded in less than 12 hours after the demand letter reached Olivia's hands. Early Monday morning, newspapers in Austin, then spreading to Dallas and Houston, simultaneously ran front-page headlines. Heiress refuses to repay father after $1.47 million. Support exposed. Stonehaven scandal. Bride accused of defrauding her own father. Alden family faces biggest reputation crisis of the decade. At the same time on social media, the hashtag #WatchMeStonehaven Disaster hadn't even cooled down before 2 new hashtags ignited. Alden scandal and ungrateful bride, constantly hitting the top trends. Every video capturing Olivia being asked to sign a personal payment guarantee the moment her credit card got declined. The florist removing flowers in front of her mother-in-law. All were edited into mocking clips with added music and sarcastic captions. Tuition $1.47 million to learn how to Kick your dad out of the wedding? Luxury bride, non-luxury card. If character could be swiped, hers would still decline. Major TikTok accounts in Texas used Olivia's story as analysis material, with some even recreating the wedding meltdown as comedic skits to mock her rootless and ungrateful attitude. Later, I learned that within the Austin Business Network, the Dallas Investment Circle, and the Houston Executive Forum, Olivia's case became the prime example of family reputation risk. Internal discussions spread across Slack, Teams, and group emails. The Aldens are in deep trouble. Avoid for now. Partnering with their brand right now is suicide. Recommend pausing all PR collaboration with Nate Alden. 3 major sponsors for Nate's upcoming tech ventures simultaneously postponed their meetings. A financial advisor in Austin outright stated in a closed meeting, "No one wants to invest in someone who can't control their own household, especially when the scandal hits statewide news." What ignited the situation even further was the leaked clip that afternoon. A 3-minute video, filmed from the hallway of the Waverly Grand Hotel, captures Olivia and Nate in a heated argument. Olivia's voice rang clearly through the door crack. "What do you want me to do? My dad sent a demand for $270,000. I don't have that money." Nate shouted back, "You told my family your father was just a small-time construction worker. You hid the truth? You made me look like an idiot in front of the whole city," Olivia cried, voice shaking. "I didn't think Dad would actually do it. I thought he would pay like he always did." Nate growled each word. "Yes, that's the problem. You never thought about paying." The clip ended with Olivia yelling, "So you want to leave me?" And Nate answered with the line that blew up the internet, "I want to escape the debt hole you created." The clip spread at an unreal rate, 12,000 shares in 30 minutes, then 48,000 in 2 hours, with a flood of brutal comments. Better drama than HBO. Bride breaking down over her debt to her dad. The Aldens chose the wrong person. Poor father raised her to $1.47 million, only to be kicked out of the wedding. The humiliation was no longer a moment. At Stonehaven, it became a digital storm, sweeping away Olivia's public image in under 24 hours. And it all revolved around one truth Olivia could no longer run from. Later, Olivia told me that evening the Alden estate in West Austin, once a symbol of power and elegance, became the battlefield of an emergency crisis meeting. All curtains were drawn, staff dismissed early, and security doubled. Inside the sealed conference room, around the nearly 4-meter walnut table, sat all the key faces of the Alden family: Judith and Raymond Alden, Nate, 2 cousins, and the family attorney Harold Stein, a man in his 60s with the cold demeanor of a machine. In the center of the table lay a thick stack of documents, filled with headlines about Olivia, viral clips, and the $1,470,000 demand letter. Harold spoke first, his voice steady and cutting. "We need to establish that this is no longer a social scandal. This is financial and reputational risk at a severe exposure level. If we don't control it, the Aldens will lose major partners in Austin, Dallas, and Houston." Judith, who always maintained a graceful public persona, dropped her upper-class mask for the first time. She said with no patience left, "She ruined the wedding, ruined Nate's new investment launch, ruined the reputation this family built over 3 generations. How much more is enough?" Raymond Alden tapped his fingers on the table. "We must protect our assets. Keeping her here will let the media shape a narrative that the Aldens tolerate irresponsibility." Harold nodded, opened his laptop, and read his recommendation. The optimal damage control solution cut her off. The room fell silent. Olivia stood in the corner, face pale. Judith continued, ice cold, each word freezing the air around Olivia. "That means Olivia must leave the estate tonight. We cannot allow reporters to capture her walking through the house. We cannot allow her to appear with us in any context. Olivia clenched her hands. You're throwing me out? Now? Harold answered for them. Olivia, from a PR standpoint, your presence here is a liability. You may take personal belongings only, no valuable items, to prevent media speculation. Raymond added, and you need to sign a temporary separation agreement from all Alden family activities. Olivia's mouth fell open. I'm Nate's wife. Nate cut her off, sounding exhausted, as if he had crossed the limit of what he could tolerate. Olivia, this is for my family's safety. It's not personal. But right after saying that, Nate took his phone, opened his email app, typed a few lines, and hit send in front of her. A notification buzzed on Olivia's phone. Instantly, she opened it. The subject line glared at her. Financial separation request. Effective immediately. Nate looked at her, avoiding her eyes. I need to separate finances. For now. Otherwise, my family and I will be pulled into legal disputes with your father. I can't let that happen. No one else in the room said a word, but the silence was harsher than any criticism. Olivia felt the ground drop beneath her. All her life, she believed that a high society family, like the Aldens, was a place where love was wrapped in elegance, where marriage came with lifelong protection. But here at this glossy conference table, she finally saw the painful truth. Love in the upper class always comes with conditions. She could be the perfect daughter-in-law as long as she brought value. She could be the cherished wife as long as she didn't damage the family's image. But when scandal erupted, when her father, the man they had once looked down on, issued a demand letter backed by undeniable evidence, all that family affection peeled off like cheap paint in the rain. Olivia tried to argue, I can explain, I didn't mean... But Judith replied, flat and merciless, intent doesn't matter. Results are what this society looks at. Harold Stein closed the file, delivering the verdict. Olivia Cross Alden will leave the estate tonight. This decision is to protect the Alden family's public image and all related financial operations. 2 security staff stepped forward, not rough, but firm. Olivia looked at Nate, waiting for a hand to hold. A comforting word, any sign that she wasn't being abandoned entirely. But Nate only said, voice low but definitive, Olivia, I'm sorry. I can't help you this time. This time? Or would there never be another time? 1 hour later, the doors of the Alden estate shut behind her, leaving Olivia standing in the cold night with only a small suitcase, and a truth she never imagined she would have to face. When power speaks, family goes silent. That night, Olivia left the Alden estate with exactly 1 suitcase that they allowed her to bring. No bank account, no credit card, no status, no support. Only the Austin sky was pouring down a shade of gray that I believe she had never seen so starkly in her life. She took a taxi back to the hotel where she'd been staying since the wedding. At the front desk, the staff said, Ma'am, your card was declined. You need to make an additional payment to stay tonight. Olivia opened her wallet. Empty. I was told she stood there for nearly a full minute, like someone waking from a long dream in which every comfort had been an illusion. My daughter, who once walked into any hotel like a VIP guest, was for the first time asked to leave because she couldn't pay for a room. She started calling her friends. 12 calls. 10 didn't pick up. 2 answered with excuses colder than ice. I'm in a meeting right now. It's not a good time for me. The same people who once leaned on her when they needed the Alden name, who dragged her out shopping every weekend, who let her pay bills without a word of thanks, now vanished as if they had never existed. With no one left to cling to, Olivia walked along the sidewalk, sat on a bench outside the hotel, opened her phone and applied for an entry-level marketing job. The first job in 28 years she had ever genuinely tried to seek. 1 hour later, she received a reply. We are unable to proceed with your application due to your recent scandal. This is the kind of moment when any father alive, no matter how hardened, would feel a sharp pull in his chest. But I chose silence. She had to walk through this darkness herself. At 9:17 p.m., my phone lit up. Olivia calling. I looked at the screen. I let it ring. Not because I felt satisfaction, but because I knew that if I picked up immediately, she would learn nothing. I let it ring a second time, then a third. I still didn't answer. She needed to understand, for the first time in her life, what it feels like to have no one shielding her. In that moment, I wasn't there to lift her, but I was there quietly to make sure that when she finally did stand on her own, she would never fall the same way again. Around close to midnight, my phone lit up again for the 10th time, then the 20th, then the 25th. I sat at my desk, sound off, watching the blinking light reflect across the wooden surface. There is a difference between a child calling out of panic and an adult calling because they have reached their true breaking point. I waited until the 27th call. This time, when the screen showed Olivia's name, I could feel the tremor in the way she kept dialing. Desperate. I picked up. Dad. Her voice didn't sound like the voice of someone who had humiliated me in front of 40 guests during a live stream. No empty confidence, no borrowed glamour of the Alden family. Only the sound of a person standing bare before life, with nothing left to hold on to. Dad, I'm sorry. She couldn't finish before the sobs came, uncontrollable. I forgot you were the only one who never abandoned me. I closed my eyes for a second, not because I was weak, but because that sentence, 28 years overdue, weighed more than any apology. When she calmed slightly, I spoke, slow and clear. Olivia, I will help you. But this time, there are conditions. She held her breath, as if afraid I might change my mind. Any conditions? Dad, just tell me. 1. You must be financially independent for 6 months. No borrowing, no relying on anyone. 2. You must find a job within 2 weeks. Any job. I don't care if it's glamorous. 3. You are not allowed to demand anything. No complaining. No asking for more. 4. Every week you send me an income expense report, like an adult. I heard her swallow her tears. I understand. Dad, I agree. This was the first time in her life she said, I agree, with the tone of someone responsible. I opened my banking app and transferred exactly $1,000, not a cent more. This wasn't rescue money. This was a final chance. I just sent it. You use that money for 2 things, a place to sleep and food, nothing else. Yes, thank you, Dad. There was a long silence, but this time it wasn't the silence of distance. It was the silence of 2 people starting again from zero, but in a healthier way. Olivia, I said, I won't catch you anymore. But if you want to stand on your own, I'll watch. She exhaled deeply, as if finally breathing again after days of drowning in chaos. I won't disappoint you again. For the first time, I believed she meant it. She had to learn to rely on herself. By afternoon, I received a blurry photo, the hiring barista assistant sign of a small coffee shop on South Lamar. It was likely the first time in 28 years I had seen my daughter standing in front of a place belonging to the working class rather than a glittering event hall or an air-conditioned office. I didn't interfere. I simply watched quietly. By evening, my phone lit up. Not a call, but a short text sent at 9:42 p.m. Dad, I got accepted for a trial shift at Moss and Maple. They needed someone urgently, so today was also my first working day. A few minutes later, another message appeared, longer, and one that made me pause everything just to read it. I got scolded by a customer for spilling a drink. My hands are blistered from washing piles of cups. The manager reminded me 3 times, but I can take it. I'm not quitting. I sat still, rereading it again and again because it was the first time Olivia ever described a workday truthfully. No embellishment, no masking, no polish. Just the raw reality she had never stepped into before. At 10:31 p.m., a third message arrived, the one that tightened something in my chest in a way I can't easily describe. Dad, I made $75 in tips today. It's the first money I've ever earned on my own. Just that one sentence, but I read it as if it carried the weight of 28 years. I remembered all the times Olivia brushed her hair back, laughing about luxury handbags, expensive shoes, trips she never paid for. I remembered the nights I sat with my ledgers, scraping together enough for tuition, cars, housing, the things she assumed were normal. But now she worked 6 hours to make $75 and sent it to me as if it were her personal victory. I didn't reply immediately. I knew any encouraging message at this moment would make her lean on me. She needed to stand on her own feet. She needed to feel the value of money from the perspective of a worker. She needed to learn that true worth did not come from the Alden name she once clung to. That night, I simply looked at her last message, and after a while, I replied with exactly one sentence. Good. Keep going. No coddling. No praise, no softening. But the kind of brevity I knew Olivia would understand. I see your effort, and I'm watching from a distance, letting you grow for real. $75 doesn't change anyone's life. But for Olivia, and for me, it was the first proof that she was truly starting over. No credit card, no husband's family, no status, no privilege. Only labor, exhaustion, and real awakening. And I knew rebirth always begins with pain. But at least this time, she was walking on her own, not being carried by me. In the weeks that followed, I didn't interfere in any of Olivia's decisions. I simply observed quietly through the income expense reports she sent every Sunday night, just as we agreed. No more luxury restaurant bills or designer shopping charges. Her reports were now filled with lines that were ordinary. Groceries, vegetables, soap, bus fare, laundry, and especially the small tip amounts she recorded each day carefully. But what made me pause the longest wasn't the numbers, but the line at the end of her second week report. Dad, I'm trying to learn how to budget. I've never done this before. I didn't know taking care of myself cost this much. It was the sentence I had waited 28 years to hear even once. Olivia began sending photos of meals she cooked herself. A bowl of noodles, a simple chicken and rice dish, a pot of soup, she proudly said, wasn't too salty like last time. I looked at those pictures and smiled. The girl who once complained about having to wash a single glass in the Alden household was now proud of her pan-fried egg. Another night she sent a short video, an old wooden table she bought from a thrift store for $25, sanding it herself, repainting it. Dad, I'm not good, but I can try. Alongside the video were her hands, still marked with red spots from washing cups at the cafe. But her eyes in the photo, for the first time in years, weren't chaotic or empty. They were full of genuine effort. The first month, I received her income report, $2,380, $1,400 from the cafe, the rest from small freelance marketing jobs Olivia took, designing posters, editing content, handling social media for a few local shops. She had studied marketing, but always thought she was too refined for small jobs like those. Now, those small jobs were saving her. By the third month, the report made even me pause for several minutes. $4,900 in income. I reread that number, then looked at the categories she divided herself into. Rent, food, transportation, and especially one new entry appearing for the first time. Repayment, $300. $300. Not much. Not enough to be called repayment. But behind that number was something priceless. The will and dignity of a child who once ignored every sacrifice made for her. Around 9 p.m. that night, I received a short message that left me still for a long time. Dad, I want to start paying back This is the first month. No begging, no showmanship, no doing this for appearances. Only the sincerity of someone who finally understood what her father had done for her for 28 years. I stared at that message for a long time. In my chest was neither pride nor satisfaction. It was a rare peace, the feeling of a father seeing his child finally stand on her own 2 feet. I replied with one sentence, simple, but for the first time allowing myself to show the pride I had kept hidden. I accept it, and I see that you're truly growing up. Olivia read it and answered with a line that quieted me completely. For 28 years, I never understood you, but now I'm learning. For the first time, I didn't read that as an apology. I read it as a declaration. She had stepped out of her old self and was rebuilding herself. $1, one meal, one small job, one responsibility at a time. Responsibilities she once assumed belonged to someone else. For the first time in her life, she understood that a father isn't a financial shadow to lean on, but the one who gave her the chance to learn again from the beginning, even if that chance came late. But it was still worth everything. I chose a quiet morning to call Olivia, not to check on her, not to verify her expense reports, but just to say one sentence. Are you free? I want you to come somewhere. On the other end, Olivia hesitated slightly, then replied softly, I'll come right away. Half an hour later, she stood in front of the gate of my construction site, the place where I began my career over 20 years ago with nothing but an old truck and a pair of scraped hands. Today, the site was the new Clark Construction office project, spread across acres of land, the sound of compressors and workers blending into the familiar noise that had supported my entire life. I saw Olivia standing there, paint still on her hands, sneakers dusty, hair tied back. No silk dresses, no designer labels, no borrowed shine, just a real person. And for the first time, I realized she resembled me far more than I had ever thought. I walked her along the newly poured concrete path, where I had once worked overnight shifts to meet deadlines, where I once believed that if I worked hard enough, my daughter would never have to struggle the way I did. Do you know where you're standing? I asked. Olivia looked around for a moment, then shook her head. This was the first project I ever took under my own name. I slept in my truck for 3 months, washed my face with cold water, worked 20 hours a day. Every brick here, I traded for it with my own strength. Olivia was silent, but this time it wasn't the silence of an arrogant child. It was the silence of someone looking back at her entire life and suddenly seeing it differently. We stood on the empty ground at the far end of the site. The wind blew, dust lifted lightly, and I felt it was time to end what I had begun on the day I sent the demand letter. I opened my backpack and took out an envelope, the original $1.47 million demand letter. The moment Olivia saw it, she held her breath. Dad, she whispered, as if any word might make this moment unbearably heavy. I held the envelope in my hands, looking at her for a long time. Olivia, I said slowly, I didn't give you the demand letter to bind you. I gave it to give you the chance to stand up for the first time in your life. She bowed her head, tears spilling out before she could stop them. I stepped forward, lifted the envelope in front of her, and tore it in half. The pieces fell onto the dusty ground of the construction site, the same ground where I had once stood at the lowest point of my life. I looked at Olivia and spoke the sentence I had held in my heart for 3 months. A father gives his child the chance to repay, not the chains to hold them. Olivia could no longer hold herself together. She threw her arms around me, gripping tightly as if afraid I might disappear. And for the first time in 28 years, I heard her say, in a trembling voice like a child finding her home again, Dad, I'm sorry. A late apology, but so genuine it tightened my chest. I placed my hand on her head, something I hadn't done since she was small. And in that moment, I knew the one thing every father hopes for. This time, she had truly grown up. When Olivia left the site, she walked with the posture of someone no longer avoiding the truth, no longer hiding behind someone else's name, no longer living a life built on her father's money or the Alden family's shine. She carried with her 3 months of labor, money earned by her own hands, the humility she had newly learned, and the gratitude she had never known before. And I watched without calling her back, without guiding her, without shielding her, because from that moment forward, the path belonged to her. An ending is not a final period. It is simply an open door. Olivia stepped into her true independence, and I stood behind, no longer a protective shadow, but a father proud to watch his child walk with her own legs. In the end, after all the noise, scandal, tears, and words no father ever wants to hear, I realized one thing. Some children only grow up when they are forced to lose everything they believed would always be theirs. I once believed a father's love meant giving without expecting anything back, but the truth is more complicated. A child who has never learned responsibility will never understand the value of love. And if my story touched your heart, leave a like, a subscription, or share it with someone who needs a reminder that sometimes loss is the only way to rediscover what matters most. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story